The world was about to find out what happens when an entire nation is swept by madness.
When it comes to acquisitions such as the China's Tencent of Ubisoft or Saudi Arabian buyout of EA, for me, I have a mixed feelings on that because we all know we don't want foreign companies control the video game industry or any video game companies, but we have to look at one particular perspective. Which would you prefer? Would you prefer a current company, or in this case, let's say BioWare, doing what they do, doing what, backing fans, disrespecting the original Dragon Age or Mass Effect, or have the Saudi Arabian at least comes in, saves them, and gives the players what they want? Which would you prefer? Because for me, I have mixed feelings, but you have to look at it in a gamer's perspective. Well, some gamers have mixed, or in this case, don't like it, but there are some who probably welcome because, frankly, don't forget, these games such as Dragon Age the Veilguard, what else? Assassin's Creed Shadows. Regardless what people or the shills want to say, those two games flop, okay? No going back. If Dragon Age the Veilguard and what is that? What's EA's last one? Oh yeah, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Man, I keep forgetting. Assassin's Creed Shadows. That's how forgetful it is. If Dragon Age Veilguard and Assassin's Creed Shadows were a success, why exactly are the companies being bought out?
The gaming industry is being invaded right now, and gamers absolutely love it. And this is just showing the clear state of the gaming industry today, where gamers are searching for anyone to save them from the pile of mishaps and disasters that have been happening in the gaming industry this past few decades when it's come to the actual quality of the games themselves and the product that has been coming out from the Western gaming studios. The standard has dropped so much for a lot of these AAA titles. People are cheering on their sale right now. That's exactly what we're seeing with the Assassin's Creed franchise, as we see it being captured and changed into something new by new investment groups. And this is a thing people were clear to see happening.
I too have a mixed feelings on this whole acquisition, like say China's Tencent buying Ubisoft or Saudi Arabian buying EA. But you have to look at it at a gamer's perspective. If Dragon Age the Veilguard and Assassin's Creed Shadows were a success like the shill says, why exactly are the companies being bought out? In my opinion, and if you read the title of this video, the video game industry, well, not just EA or anything, hopefully you can hear that voice, besides EA and also Ubisoft, the whole video game industry needs a reset. Because right now, Indie and AA, along with games made in the East, are taking over.
Industry, and usually in the past we used to deride this happening, but now gamers are all in and support of this change, and it's leading to massive layoffs of legacy leaders of franchises. And this is what we're seeing happening with Assassin's Creed as they change up the people that are actually leading and directing the game, because they see it as essential to purge the ranks that have created the current state of Ubisoft. And the current state of Ubisoft is a version of Ubisoft that has to kick out its franchise lead for Assassin's Creed, Mark Alexis Cote, who was at the head of this franchise for over a decade. And this is kind of the situation we've been seeing happening all across the gaming industry, a purging of the talent that has been there, sabotaging the gaming industry for the past decade or so. And it doesn't matter if you're a person that's been there from the beginning. If you're there now and you're leading to the deterioration of the industry that you're in hot water. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Assassin's Creed franchise as it changes pace. And if you don't know anything what happened with Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed, well, Assassin's Creed Shadows happened. Assassin's Creed Shadows,
that's right.
It's the most recent release from Ubisoft, and it was a complete disaster, a sales disaster to be precise, because no one really wanted to buy the game. And I think we saw that with the Steam numbers. We saw that with the conversation online. People were dissatisfied with the game itself, and it was controversial. It tried to deride and ridicule the country it was trying to represent, Japan, by saying you're a racist slave colony, when all of this was hearsay and lies. And
also, don't forget the reason why those games, like say Assassin's Creed Shadow, happens because, don't forget, these companies in the West, they knew instantly that AA, Indie, and games made in the East, mostly games made in the East, is going to defeat them back in the past. The Eastern market, such as either China or Japan, well, China and South Korea, they rarely succeed on anything until Stellar Blade comes in and until Black Myth Wukong. But Black Myth Wukong really kicks the door open.
We saw it play out with Ubisoft as it released a failure of a title, and the stock tumbled until it had to actually reach for a bailout from a company like Tencent. Tencent is a Chinese company. We saw them buy a 50% stake in Ubisoft, becoming its largest shareholder, and their subsequent firing of over 20,000 people and staff globally, reducing the overall size of the productive staff that is working on video games, spinning it out into Vantage Studios, which now only has 2,000 people working on all their legacy titles from Assassin's Creed to Rainbow Six. And this is a situation we are seeing continuing happening across the gaming industry, where we're having gigantic foreign companies come in, invading the gaming space and kind of changing it into the way that gamers have always wanted to see changed. They wanted to see the people that are ahead of this disastrous part in the gaming history to be kicked out. And that's what we're seeing with Alex Cote kicked out of his position of director of Assassin's Creed.
When it comes to people losing their jobs, I have sympathy for that. But the real question is, you ask yourself this: why do people in the video game developer keep on saying, oh, if you don't like it, don't buy it, or even this case, don't ask questions, just consume product and get excited for next product? Or better yet, if you don't like it, turn on the TV, touch grass. And when people did that and your game failed, you complain. You play victim card. Why is that? So again, like I said, when it comes to this whole acquisition, I have mixed feelings on that. I know it is understandable that foreign companies should not allow to buy it, but you have to look at it at a gamer's perspective, okay? Many gamers, all they want is just a fun, normal, and playable games. That's it. They don't want to be lectured. They don't want to be bashed in the head with political nonsense. Yes, I may disagree with the CCP, but when it comes to video games, who would you choose? That's the question.
Of a generation that has been lost in the sauce of producing content for people that really don't like gaming. And I think that is the thing that is leading for a lot of these foreign companies to take advantage of the actual inability of current Western gaming studios of actually producing content for a gaming audience. And you can see this clearly with Assassin's Creed Shadows. As I mentioned before, they ignored the cultural standards. They wanted to focus on a 2020 George Floyd-like assassin. I know people are going to say Yasuke was real. Yes, he was a real servant for 1 year until he was sent back to Portugal. He wasn't a samurai. He carried swords. It wasn't real. And I think the thing is, people would have been able to accept it, but Ubisoft wants the story to be real, so they kind of disrespected Japan in their presentation of the game. And of course, Japan is not going to buy a game from a studio that disrespects them. And of course, gamers already know the origin of the game itself, where they're more about representation than the actual quality of the game. And that's what people saw as a symbol as, because people, I think in the past, would have loved playing a game like this if it didn't take itself so serious, if it didn't take itself as a representation of American values in Japan. And that's the thing. People are frustrated with the game itself, where we had all these LGBTQ representative relationships, things that were unnecessary for an Assassin's Creed game at the forefront of this game, and it kind of distracted people from the actual quality that they wanted from the game. There was some things that were enjoyable about the game, but the game lost itself.
Thank God for video editing. Again, when it comes to this, when it comes to making historical accuracy, okay, let's throw the whole accuracy, inaccuracy out of the way. If you disrespect a culture, remember, Asian culture, you can't mess with them. You mess with them, you're done. You're lucky this is Japan. I mean, how come they didn't go so far as what, North Korea or something? Ubisoft is too pussy. And I'm pretty much certain that when it comes to this, I would have tried out Assassin's Creed Shadows, but when they did it with Yasuke and all that, I'm checked out. At least Dynasty Warrior Origin, at least, I do mean at least, has 80% historical accuracy. Yes, some of them have gameplay aspects, but 80% of it, accurate.
Moral standards, it's moral grandstanding that gamers are just not there for. And I think that's the thing that we keep seeing with these franchises that are coming out. They're more interested in producing content that is representative of what they want to see in the modern day society, rather than actually making things that gamers really want to play. And I think that's what we saw with Assassin's Creed Shadow. This is what we saw from the team of Ubisoft. They were more focused on transgenerational relationships rather than the actual gameplay.
Dude, look at this. I mean, seriously. Back in the day, the development team's like what? A few people? Well, maybe exception like 100 or so, but look at this. What the hell is this? These game companies should ask them this. If I were a game company, I would ask them this. Can you do the job? I don't care about your skin color. The question is, can you do the job? Can you do this job? Do you have experience on it? That's the question. I mean, seriously, this is useless. What will it take for Yves Guillemot to face the harsh reality? Yves Guillemot is going to be the one thing that prevents Ubisoft from actually doing anything. I don't know about the Vantage Studio, but hopefully the next Assassin's Creed is much better. I don't know about the Assassin's Creed Hex, because I know for a fact that China doesn't allow same-sex marriage, if my memory serves me correctly, and Assassin's Creed Hex, on the other hand, is most likely gonna be same-sex or lesbian stuff. Who knows?
That they even update the gameplay a few months later because it just didn't move smooth enough. It didn't have the original Assassin's Creed jumping or climbing standards, so they had to even update it because they ignored the quality of the game to focus on these cultural elements. And I think that's the thing that we see usually with these gaming studios that are oversized in the West, where they're just not even focused on things that the gamers actually want to play. And I think that's the problem with a lot of studios today. They don't know what they're making anymore because they don't care about it. They just care about its representation of their personal ideologies, and if it is a suitable standard bearer of what they believe is right and wrong.
My previous video where I say we need to get nerds back into game development, which we do, okay? Back then, video game was never mainstream, but when video game went mainstream, there were pros and cons. The pros is that the money comes too. There were more money to be made. But the cons is, of course, the bad actors. There are bad actors who want to take advantage of it, and before you know it, the nerds that was previously in game development were pushed out and blacklisted. And now, some of those nerds that, assuming they still survive or exist, they're now creating their own studio, becoming either indie or AA.
What we also saw with EA, Electronic Arts, being bought up by a Saudi Arabian firm in the Middle East, where they purchased this video game developer for over $55 billion. And of course, this purchase is panicking, scaring people at studios that have the same representation focus on their overall production of video games. And of course, I'm talking about BioWare. BioWare is panicking because they believe Saudi Arabia doesn't have their values, which is correct to think that way because they don't have the current values that we see right now from BioWare and a lot of these studios that are more hyper-focused on representative politics. And I think that's the scary thing that we see with a lot of studios that are coming out right now, seeing a change in the overall atmosphere in gaming, where they're being purchased by foreign companies that do not want to see their representative politics at the forefront of gaming. And that's what we saw with BioWare after its major failed game, Dragon Age Veilguard, where the fans were calling out the studio for ignoring the lore and the overall cultural environment of Dragon Age to be more focused on their personal modern-day ideals of what they want to see.
And also, don't forget, recently, Magic of the Gathering was making a survey to see if the person they survey is a part of their community, of which some say that they are not a part of the community, only to find out that that person who did the survey happens to collect Magic the Gathering cards. And this is the problem. When you gaslight your core audience that kept your companies the lights on, or in this case, kept your company thrive through many years, and when you push them aside or push them away, what, you're gonna rely on the modern audience, which doesn't exist, and good luck of getting them back. And I do mean getting the core fan base, which I'm 100% certain many BioWare, or in this case, many Dragon Age fans are gone. Well, there are some are still there, but the rest, gone.
In the real world. Of course, we all saw the popular non-binary conversation where we're talking about pronouns and all these other things that are nonsense to the gamers, but this is the essential thing that we see from the
Saudi Arabia doesn't like this one.
They're more focused on their current status and their gender preference rather than the things that are actually interesting. You see this with the game director for Dragon Age, where they transitioned in the middle of the game, and the whole game was about their transition. And no one really cared about that. This had nothing to do with the Dragon Age world, and it makes no sense in the Dragon Age world. And I think that's the thing people were stuck up on when we saw Dragon Age become more about personal idealism and representation rather than the game's lore in and of itself. And that is the thing gamers are cheering on when we hear about purchases of these studios. We're going, hey, we like this. We want to see BioWare destroyed. We want to see Ubisoft destroyed. We want to see these companies that have already destroyed their franchises actually meet their karma and get the wrath that they've already felt by purchasing a terrible game, or just not even be able to enjoy the franchise they love anymore because it's been ruined by ideologues and posers.
Yeah, like I said, I won't play the whole video. I'm gonna play some of it. I'll leave the full video link in the description. Now, listen here. Again, for me, when it comes to the EA buyout, okay, I was mix. Okay, I was skeptical, but you have to look at it at a gamer's perspective. Which would you prefer? EA, or in this case current EA, without the buyout, continue to do slop after slop, thus alienating the original audience? Or would you have foreign companies such as the Saudi Arabian purchase the company, EA, and make games better? That a foreign company to purchase a company or a video game company such as EA is understandable, okay? Many people have their concern. When it comes to video games and making games for the consumers, aka the gamers, well, I don't think gamers wouldn't give a damn, and it is understandable for gamers to celebrate it. Yes, there are some people who oppose the buyout. Overall, many gamers just want good games, at least playable, no bugs, no glitches, and most importantly, respect their time and money. So to those people, or in this case to the AAA, who hasn't get a buyout, such as what? Bungie? I don't think Bungie has it. You know what? I'll just say it outright. To any video game company that doesn't suffer like EA or Ubisoft, make good game. These gamers, or the chuds that you call them, they're the ones that kept your light open. Think about that. You alienated them, calling them grifters or chuds or incels. Good luck at the unemployment line.
In direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles, Germany spent the 1930s rebuilding their military into a massive fighting force that Hitler planned to use in his conquest of Europe. In response, the French government poured their resources into the Maginot Line, a massive self-contained fortification that ran the entire length of their eastern border. Unfortunately, the Maginot Line turned out to be one of the greatest miscalculations of modern military history. Germany's Luftwaffe simply flew over it. France's formal surrender was finalized in just a matter of weeks.
Absolute cinema.